right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Smirking Reviews, where today we are beginning a new journey. If you didn't see my announcement video already, uh, I've decided to go in a different direction on my channel. We are still covering Better Call Saul, the final season of that show. And when The Handmaid's Tale comes out, we will be talking about The Handmaid's Tale. But outside of those two shows, after they're done, I'm going to be focusing on a bunch of different things that aren't going to be current based. Like, I'm not going to focus on things that are current. I'm going to be talking about things that I've been wanting to make. And what a better way to start trying something new than with this show called Critical Role that I discovered. And I highly recommend you check out my announcement video for that to talk about why I decided to do this. Because, like the people on the show, every week, they're very nervous. Any of the iterations, I started watching Exandria Unlimited, so I could get the more of the backstory on Orem, Fern, and Dorian. And the people there were nervous, and the DM that has Matt Mercer as a character, and she's nervous, and I'm freaking out. That video I made was very emotional and personal, and I made it, and somehow I got through it. But putting together this first recap reaction video has got me in a place that I'm not used to, even more so than I usually am, which is like my nervousness and my anxiety are running rampant right now because I really want to do good at this. I want to do well, do good. And so please forgive me if some of these are, especially right now, are going to be a little more rough and a little more trying to figure out how I want to do this and how I want to cover this, how I want it to look and sound and feel. And I felt like maybe the best way for me to show you how I'm going to approach things would be to show you something that I made already. And I've talked about in that last video how the is it Thursday yet always makes me feel every single time when I'm watching a new episode of Critical Role. I get a certain reaction, and I geek out in my own room, and I wondered if I was going to do the same thing if I knew the camera was on. And honestly, I think it just I think it just shows you guys a little bit more into who I am as a person. Because like I said, this is out of my comfort zone, everyone. I am trying new things, and I hope that you guys like it. And so check this out, and we'll be right back. And maybe this will earn me some levity or earn me some bonus points for just trying really hard to be a big dork. But yeah, check this out, and I'll be right back.
One by one we climb until we reach the top. Two by two we fall. Will we meet our end or meet our destiny? Hold your breath and roll.
How do you want to do this?
It's Thursday night. All ye critters, come join us. It's time to continue our flight. There is magic and mystery. Who knows what will happen? We might. But one thing's for sure, we never give up on the fight.
From the healer to the renegade, we all share the same goal. Adding more allies, taking more chances. Hold your breath and roll.
You can certainly try.
It's Thursday night. All ye critters, come join us. It's time to continue our flight. There is magic and mystery. From darkness our friendship will rise. But one thing's for
All right. So if you're still here and you weren't horrified by that, because I was, um, you either want to see how much more of a train wreck this is going to be, which is probably, your standard American, or you just want to see a grown man cry again. I don't know. But either way, here's how things are going to work here. Now, your typical reactor is an overreactor, in my opinion. I don't make standard reaction videos, but I have come to the realization that a lot of what I do is not just reviews; it's recaps, and I am giving you my personal reaction to something, just not live. I don't get I reaction videos. Mostly, I just don't get them. Why you want to see somebody that you don't know or care about or will ever see ever, how they feel about some new color lightsaber or some superhero show that nobody knew about who the character was until 2 weeks ago, and suddenly everybody's bawling over it. I don't do that. I give honest reactions, not overreactions. You like that stuff, great, but don't really expect that here. And that's why I played that, because that's about as over the top as you're gonna see me. Because that is a real reaction. I'm watching it and I get super excited. I get super excited. My hair on my arm stands up, and honestly, I get jazzed up because I'm about to watch something amazing, which is live story played out in front of everyone, and it's a game. And like I said, I was wrong for a long time about D&D, and now I just wish I had another life to start playing, because it sounds like it would be a blast. And watching these people on this show, um, it sure does seem like a heck of a lot of fun. And so I took a lot of notes, folks, like a ridiculous amount of notes. Um, yeah, it keeps. Does it keep going? Yeah, it's there. Yeah. And this isn't a script. This is more like for me to keep myself on track. Now, if you look at all this, it's like a manifesto. What I did was I kept track of how many roles every character made in episode 20 and 21. Now, I'm choosing to do episode 20 and 21 together because I feel like it was a great, like, full story. We got part of the story in one, or at least the scenario. We got the bulk of it in episode 20, and we got the back half of it in episode 21, and jumping to a next thing for episode 22 is all set up at the end of that. So I thought it was really fitting, especially because episode 20 is a great, like, if you needed to just jump in and dive into an episode, I think this episode 20 gives you a lot of things that you could, as a newcomer, enjoy, and you would get to know a lot of the characters and a lot of the mistakes that people can make. So if anybody's interested in the math of all this, I wanted to work out the percentages, because I even did like this with the green screen. It kind of gets screwed up. I was going to do like percentages to who is the most successful, the least successful, give you like all this stuff. And I also put in something that I'm calling the meh roll, which is a roll that doesn't get anybody anything. It's basically like a stalemate where nothing negative or positive happens. Another thing about keeping track of the rolls was I wasn't keeping track of the rolls that they do for initiative. I wasn't keeping track of the rolls that they do to heal people, or the rolls that they do to like add like guidance or bonus damage. The rolls that I kept track of were any attacks, any saving throws, anything that counts either for like that would give damage or not. And there's even like if somebody gets attacked, and I didn't count attacks that Matt, or rolls that Matt makes. I kept track though of like if they took damage uh, after they did a roll um, that wasn't an attack, like it was more like an area of effect thing. Like in episode 20, when they go through the statues, they even though they jumped away from it like successfully, they still are going to be taking damage. So I counted those that should be, like where he goes, oh, you only take 8 damage, but I can still consider that. I personally consider that a fail. I would like to hear what everybody else thinks about that. And it's just a system. It's not a set in stone kind of thing I have. But I just thought it's an interesting way for me to keep myself really engaged and taking notes, because I noticed they all take a lot of notes too. So for episode 20, the rolls that they did, there was a total of 149 rolls. That's again not counting initiative, healing, that kind of thing. Um, and also I kept track of who had the most rolls to the least rolls, and I'll let you guys kind of decide who you think were the top and the bottoms, even though I think it's kind of clear when I list them off who were the more successful rollers. Because one of the best things about this is, yeah, they're telling this story. Everybody gets to fill in their parts and what they want to do. They plan moves ahead sometimes. Sometimes there's a lot of talking and they don't even realize it's their turn. Sometimes they have no idea what they're going to do because they're so nervous. It's such a great, like, on the spot, real time thing going on. And so to me, I don't know why there isn't a hashtag nothing matters until you roll. Right? Every plan that you make, every cool thing that you want to do, great. But until you roll, it don't mean a damn thing. So starting with the most rolls for episode 20, it was Chetney with 41 rolls. He rolled 41 times. The closest to him that rolled that much is the next person with 25, and we'll get to them. So out of 41 rolls, I consider Travis's character Chetney to have 29 successful rolls, 10 fails, and 2 meh. Now the next one down is Ashton with 25 rolls. That's a pretty big difference. I just also think it's when we talk about this, it's interesting. You kind of can see how people want to play things and how some are more aggressive, some more think more, and sometimes they can't even help it and they're not in a position even to roll. But Ashton had 25 rolls with 16 successes, 8 fails, and 1 meh. Orem comes in at third place with 24 rolls. He had 12 successes, 10 fails, and 2 mehs. Then after that, we have a tie for fourth with Fern and Imogen both having 16 rolls, except Fern had 12 successful rolls, 3 fails, and 1 meh, compared to Imogen, who had 16 rolls, and she had 7 successful rolls, but 8 fails and 1 meh. Now, after that, you have Laudna, who had 15 rolls that were successful 12 times, but had 3 fails. And then coming in at the last is Fresh Cut Grass with 12 rolls. He had 3 successes, 9 fails. Now, even though there's some people that have more, like Orem has 10 fails, he also had 12 successes, which is about, I would say he's around 60%, maybe 60-40 on his success failure rate. But with FCG having only 3 successes and 9 fails, I kind of feel like FCG he couldn't get anything going in this episode at all. Well, you could say, well, is it fair to call Chetney the more successful roller because he just rolled more and had 29 successes? If you roll that much, you better have some successes. So I would love to hear what everybody thinks about all that, and if this is helpful at all or anything that anybody does. I'm also doing this because there's some other project that I'm working on where I'm going to be dealing with a lot of little details like that, and I thought I'd just give this a shot. If this isn't appreciated, if me keeping like this kind of detail, because I even wrote for every role what their role was for. Um, like investigation, dexterity, strength, all that. I also didn't get every roll number. I even kept track of what they rolled, like as the number that they had. Sometimes they don't even say what they have. They just will go, "Oh, that's really high," or "That's really low." But I can still gauge that it's a success or failure because of what Matt says. So there's that. And I also did keep in track of like the first natural 20, who rolled the first natural 20, who rolled the first fail. In episode 20, Oren had the first one, natural one. And it actually kind of happened a little bit later in the episode. I'm trying to see if I have who had the first natural 20, but I have so much written down here that it's kind of hard for me to tell where, where I had it written down. I also kept track of when they first rolled initiative, which in episode 20 was 2 hours and 19 minutes and 54 seconds. It was a long time to go before they actually rolled initiative. And that just means that there was a lot of good setup, a lot of investigating, all that stuff. And then I also kept track of what they said for as far as the ads go beforehand, which episode 20, the NordVPN ad was freaking amazing. Laura putting Sam's face on her face and her energy doing it, just phenomenal. I know that I don't find all the ads funny, but they finally did, and I think I said this in the announcement video, that they finally found a way for me to not skip ads, which is brilliant. You get all these people together, even if it's not that great, it's still more watchable than, like, say, I've been dissing pretty hard the progressive ad that's on YouTube where the like grown-up son is admonished, giving his parents crap because they don't treat him like a roommate. I had it up to here with that commercial after one airing. So at least these are entertaining. But another really highlight of that ad was Ashley coming in, who kind of forgot that she was supposed to start, and her Australian accent of the wicked spade and the chimney discount. I don't roll on the floor laughing, and I don't overreact, but I was cracking up so hard. And Laura's commitment to this bit, the switching back and forth with the face, Travis reacting to her not being able to kiss her because of the eyes and the giant teeth, just fantastic. Even the like Liam's reaction to this whole thing about is it the same day anymore? These people are giving us such great entertainment that if you're not a subscriber to Critical Role on Twitch, you can't afford it, and you wait for YouTube or however, or if you can only watch it live or however you consume Critical Role, do it. I thankfully get a subscription every month because of my Prime account, but then I decided that I really did want to support Critical Role, and that's why I started buying some things. Because yeah, you love something, help them out, especially because this is like to me like an independent show. And I said this on the other video that this is the first time that I felt like this since the original Mystery Science Theater 3000, and watching Rift Tracks, people that just love something so much and they figure out a way to make it. And if they have to supplement with like subscriptions and merchandising, as long as they're giving me a great quality product, I am more than happy to support them. And I'm going to take another sip of my raspberry melon tea. Engaging television, everybody. Engaging right here, watching me drink. Okay, so it is time to get into episode 20's recap after a long time. Like I said, everybody, be patient. I will get these more streamlined. Like I said, I'm super nervous. I really am. So the whole point of episode 20 is the big museum heist where Hytroga, I believe his name is. I have his name like written all over the place here, but they're supposed to go in compete with another group to break into this museum and find a very specific earring, get out of there by the next morning, and whoever wins gets kind of like bragging rights a little bit. It was a little weird why they even took this job, in my opinion, but I think it was mostly due to Ashton having dealings with Hexam that needed to be done, and since helps that character's arc, well then more power to it, and it became a very very fun episode to watch where they know that there are non-lethal traps and a competition going on, but as we quickly find out, our group, well, they are trying not to kill the other group. They're not trying too hard to not kill them in some ways. Whether you're Ashton, who yanks on a rope and sends one flying, and I'm pretty sure he died, to Chetney saying later on in I think episode 21, where he's like, "Oh, I should have maybe killed them while they were stuck to the ceiling." I talked about before I watched this episode with my friend Don from work. Sorry, I said your name. That when I heard the premise of this, I was like, "Oh, well, this is going to be a shit show." And I was kind of right, but when I say shit show, I mean like in the best possible way, which is they set off almost every single trap every single time, and I kind of was, like as a viewer, I had to remind myself again, like I'm saying to you guys here, guys and gals, however you represent yourself, he, him, she, he, I don't. Sorry. All right. So if you saw the aggressive edit there, I had a problem. I had two problems happen at the same time. One, I forgot how to say pronouns, and the other was a message that shot up in the middle of my screen telling me about something about my my computer sending me a message in the middle of the review, which completely made every single word that I had in my head disappear as I tried to figure out what this message was going to say. It literally was just this blank square with a couple of blurbs on the top and no other information. My entire head just emptied. And so I took a break, and now we're back. We're talking about episode 20. We're inside the place. We're talking about how they weren't trying to kill everybody, but that they did set off basically almost every trap in this place. I thought that was, it tracks. It tracks with our group, But there was also a ton of references in this. There was the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade reference with the Brody getting lost in his own museum joke. There was a reference to the librarian from Ghostbusters. There was a Beetlejuice reference with the sandworms. Let's see, what else do we have in here? We had a Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer reference. Tons of stuff. Where I got all of them written down. A Bane, but not Bane from like the comics, but like the Tom Hardy Bane reference. So to start off, right, Chetney and Ashton were both trying to get into this place, and I love how those two guys play off each other. Chetney and Travis Travis, who plays Chetney, is doing a fantastic job. He's always like stealthing and turning into the werewolf at just the most brilliant opportunities. He's also been rolling really well with this character for a lot of these episodes, I feel like. And in this case, he's the only one. He's separated from the group. He's with a couple of the people that are working against them, and how he's invisible, and he's witnessing them getting stuck in their own traps. And I just the way Travis plays this character is great. I thought that the way they got trapped was really funny, because it was kind of like expecting the sexy mirror on the ceiling, but then they all end up stuck on it. But then we get to the rest of the group, where they proceed to immediately, they were talking about dispel. They see the statues. There are two statues and stairs going up. They're talking about doing dispel, but they don't. They don't dispel it, and they, a couple of them take damage. Yes, they put rugs over them, but these statues do tons of damage to our characters, including Chetney, who later comes down the stairs and basically has a Home Alone moment that they even joke about, where he gets hit by the statues, hits the ball bearings that they left for the other people. He falls from that. Then, just to get to the rest of the group, he has to roll again through past the statues, once again getting hit. Orem, and on the other hand, has his own problems, right? This is like kind of all happening at the same time, or a little bit, just a little bit off, right? The Chetney stuff happens a little bit after Orem goes to the kitchen, and he sets off a trap. Just going through the door sets off a trap, and while he does manage to move a little bit, he still takes damage with telekinesis, sending cutlery flying across the room that stabs him up. Um, Another cool thing that this episode really had going for it was the Pakapee, Pakapee, Chetney Pakapee. Him nailing his stealth and really being like a Mission Impossible character. I really enjoyed them leaning into that pretty heavily. But eventually, FCG does, dispel a trap. He actually does. He's the only one. He has the most fails, but he's the only one who actually uh, sets up a trap. And I should say that not every trap they fall for. Like in episode 21, they do manage to not set off some of the traps uh, accidentally. Some of the traps they set off on purpose, and we'll get to talking about that. But we also have Sam adding extra creepiness to Laudna's whispers. Whispers really funny. You're going to die. Sistercraft. We get to hear about Chetney's love for the sistercraft of porcelain. But then we get the trap number 3, where Travis resets off the statue trap. Then trap number 4. I'm kind of doubling up on this statue because this is how much the statue does damage, and I said this a little earlier. The 4th instance of the traps being set off is Travis again resetting the same statue trap again. We get some reference to Hishari armor, which is something that everybody wrote down, so I figured I better write that down too. I think that's going to be important later. And we get to trap number 5. This one is set off by Fresh Cut Grass's failure, where everyone gets webbed to the floor. Now, these are, like the guy said, non-lethal traps, I guess. But I mean, those caged orbs could have killed somebody. So I kind of feel like this guy, when he says they're not physically damaging per se to kill you, yeah, sure, I guess, but get hit by him enough, you're going to die. But they all managed to eventually get out of the webbing through strength and through cunning. Now, trap number 6, and we're just in the museum entrance now, like with the webbing. Well, Orem, he steps on a dais. I was trying to think about how should they approach all these traps. Like I was thinking, like, are you supposed to just be like tapping everything? But really, it's just that they need to get down and investigate. We have a lot of people just kind of going towards things, and it almost feels unfair. It almost seems unfair. We'll get to how people react in episode 21 to just the aggressive nature of this place. But hey, Matt's just playing by the game's rules. But Orem steps on a dais, which sends a gas throughout the entire room, where everybody starts tripping balls and falling, feeling like they're falling. So I believe it's Imogen and Chetney that are the only ones that aren't affected by the hallucinatory gas. This scene is hilarious. Fresh Cut Grass shooting his grapple gun. Fern not being able to pull a save off. So she's just constantly screaming the whole time as they all fall and try to figure out how to get away from this trap. Really, really funny stuff. Chetney talking about, I've seen things, man, as he dives into a room. We also know that the other team is nearby, and a trap that Orem left, which was not a deadly trap at all, but really just a funny trap, was the flour and the lentils as they take their first break in the episode. Now, they get to a room that has the mask in it, and the mask in it, after Chetney throws his smoke bomb off, and Laudna channels Katharine Hepburn. And Laudna then seals the door behind them with the immovable rod. They're in this room with the elongated mask. And 5 marionette puppets fall from the ceiling. Now, at first, I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of like, Laudna would love this room. And that Orem just thinks it's just plain old fuckery to fuck with them. But I mean, dude, this is not just puppets falling from the ceiling like that. It's not going to be just some simple fuckery. In fact, what I really like in this is how Matt is able to pull off a jump scare live by just describing something, by just giving a performance of his own, while they're all just so enwrapped in what is going on that when he makes that noise where the puppets come alive and they don't, everyone screams in some fashion, loud or small. And it really worked. I mean, I wasn't freaking. I mean, it's a freaky face that Matt's making, and I can see that if I was in that room, I would probably be like myself. But it shows like how much you can get caught up in your own imagination and make these things come alive. That is, as a storyteller myself, at least that's what people tell me. I'm a good storyteller. You wouldn't know it probably from this video. But the fact that you can pull that off, just telling somebody like a campfire story, almost like kind of ghost story, where it's like, and they found that when they opened up the car door, there was a hook. How you could get people to react just by telling a story like that is amazing. We get 2 hours and 24 minutes in before we finally get our first. It's been a while. And I think my favorite line of the entire episode is when Laudna says something and Orem calls her out on what she says, and he goes, "Did you just ask if you could back things up in life?" And legitimately, everybody's just kind of like, But then, just when you thought things couldn't get any creepier, all the puppets start laughing. And we get the real attack here, which is everybody becomes infected, charmed, as you would say, I guess, with this same laughter. And everybody has to get a save to do that. And FCG and Chetney's laughs are pure nightmare fuel. Pure nightmare fuel. I hope I do not ever hear those laughs ever again. But everyone except Fern and Orem are laughing. And this goes on for a while. Everybody just laughing creepily. This is a really, really entertaining episode, you guys. There's the Pinocchio reference because you have to have if you're going to have marionettes, you're going to make a Pinocchio reference. But Fern ends up torching most of them and sabotaging. Now, we end up down the stairs. We get another room going down because they've been trying to locate this earring. Each room they go in, another trap. Well, we find the journal in the center of the room, right? And it's like obvious trap setup. It's the journal of Vespin and Chloris. Or is it? He's a villain, and that reading this book apparently could drive one mad. And they also find a side room with a masthead of a warrior woman, a masthead like the front of a ship. And the rest, and this is where we find out that all the plaques have ellipses at the end of it, which is just this kind of great character detail for the man who set up the Hytroga, the man who's setting all this up. It really says a lot about his character. The paintings that are all him, just the vanity of it, and he's really all about this. Well, this is where we get to trap number 6 that Chetney sets off going into that room with the masked head. And it ends up on a greased slide. So he just walks in the room, floor drops. This isn't an illusion. This isn't a hallucination. This isn't some gas. He falls down like a ventilation shaft, if you will, for lack of a better term. So now he's John McClaning it in a ventilation shaft. He lands on something slimy, sticky. It's basically, a larger version of what I can't show you apparently with my green screen on. It's magic. I have the Funko Pop of the gelatinous cube here. Imagine it being there. Well, he turns werewolf to try to keep himself up, but he's taken severe damage. This is actually a really great scene because we can see what happens when Chetney takes a lot of damage, gets near death. Even Travis has said that, I'm really good until I get below 24 points, and then things get weird. And if he's in werewolf form, it sure does. This is a really intense scene because he's really close to dying, and if he falls in there, he might. This is Travis's second character of the campaign, and while I think the first character was meant to die, if Chetney were to fall right now, boy, would we be missing out on a whole lot of fun later. But they get a plan together, and as Chetney's trying to do his thing, the rest of the group is trying to, pull, send Orem down on a rope where they're all basically making a human chain, trying to figure out how to do all that. And as they finally manage to get Chetney up, and it's taking a long time, and he keeps making Chetney take I think it's a wisdom saving throw. When he comes out, he's gone full wolf. He grabs and he slashes into Orem. He attacks Orem. He goes completely feral, and they are able to calm him down, but this is definitely something that they're going to have to keep an eye on. Now, we end up in a room with a lion statue, and there's more traps that they do find. So I shouldn't say that they set off all the traps. At this point, they are finally investigating the floors so that they can get into this room. And they end up in the big treasure room where this earring is. And we get a 7 reference with the what's in the box. I love this group of people. They know all the good stuff that I know. It's nice to be able to have a conversation or feel like you're in a conversation with a bunch of people who've seen all the same movies, read all the same books, read all the same comics, played all the same games. For once in my life, I'm not like going, you've never heard of 7? You don't know who the Beastie Boys are or some crap, it's really nice. It's really, really nice to be watching something where you feel like they would get you if you if you were in the room. Well, there's a glass case. They can't get into it. A couple of golems start getting made, and they're trying everything they can to get this glass open. Nothing's happening. The golems drop. They're ready to attack. To be continued, where we set up this week's episode 21. And yeah, is it Thursday yet? So that's the end of episode 20. Now, episode 21. This one was hard to keep track of the rolls, and I am not 100% sure I got them all. In fact, I'm about 90% sure that I missed a couple because there was this was a really strange because there was a lot of story and a lot of little side stuff of guidance here, and let me give you, I'll help you with damage there. So there was some of the rolls were hard for me to. I couldn't decide whether or not I should add them or not. So this is just preliminary. Again, this whole thing that I'm doing with the rolls, it's not set in stone. And this was also when I got a little bit more organized compared to what I was doing the very first time, which is like a lot on this page. So it's much more organized. As I drop my notes. So nervous. So nervous still. Okay, so by my numbers, and these are going to be correct, I don't think, there were 86 rolls. And once again, Chetney's at the top. But there's a significantly less amount of rolls in episode 21 than in episode 20. Everybody's a lot closer until you get a little bit near the end. It's a little bit like the first few are right there, and then the rest are kind of like right grouped up as well. So Chetney has 20 rolls, but this time he's got 18 successes, one fail, and one met. Ashton, nope. Orem comes in second place this time with 19 rolls, 17 successes, and only two fails. So, like, both Chetney and Orem had good runs in episode 21. And Orem was a character to really watch in this because he had plans going into this. And as you can tell, when you have a whole bunch of people with different ideas and want to all do different things, or sometimes a plan stops working halfway through it, or and you end up back where you were going to be. Well, we'll get to that. So he had 17 successes, two fails. Ashton comes in third with 18 rolls, 12 successes, five fails, and one met. Now, those are the high ups. Then you drop all the way down to Fern, who's Ashley's not even here. It's the first time Ashley hasn't made it to an episode of this campaign. I hadn't watched it, and my friend from work, he was telling me that Ashley wasn't here. I was like, oh. And it's fine that it's absolutely fine. They were talking about COVID, that there was a COVID situation, and she's just being safe. So she's watching from home, texting everybody, which also caused a whole lot of problems because poor Laura was really trying. I mean, she was already nervous, practically having an anxiety attack, just having to be feeling responsible for the roles. And because if Ashley can't be there, and what if she dies? And there was some really like close calls in this. But Fern, without even being there, ends up in fourth place with 11 rolls, 9 successes, and only 2 fails. So Laura, you did a really good job considering the fact that you had to roll for someone else. She was more successful with Fern than she was. Well, she was pretty close to herself, really, because as we get to next, Imogen is in the next place. She had 7 rolls, but out of those 7 rolls, 6 of them were successes, and she had no fails. She just had a meh, which was basically a stalemate. So Laura had a pretty good game. Now you get to Laudna. And also, she only rolled 6 times, but she had 5 successes and only 1 fail. And then coming in last again is Fresh Cut Grass with 5 rolls, 3 successes, 1 fail. And this, but if you look at this compared to last episode, all the fails 10, 8, 9, 10, 3, 3, 8 compared to 1, 5, 2, 1, 1, 2. So rolling wise, they all had a better game, but they also rolled less more in episode 21. Again, these are just figures that if you like having them, you have them. If you don't, you've probably already skipped ahead or turned off the video altogether. So getting into this, their first initiative was like right at the beginning, right? They were getting attacked by the golems. What I love about this is that the fight that they have, right? The fight they have is really, they just want to get the earring and get the hell out of there. In this case, escape was much harder than they planned. Orem had already his plan set up, but because his initiative was low, he didn't get to do what he wanted to do, and things started to snowball. And you could tell that Liam was a little bit like growing frustrated with how things were going, and it would only get more frustrating as it went on because this small little room, this escape plan, turned into a whole lot of things, but it became a lot of entertaining moments for us. So the fight, to avoid the fight, results in the fight. So Imogen comes up with a brilliant move right off the bat that she is able to pull off, which is she commands the golems, takes them over for a whole turn, which means they can go through this whole first round. Then they get to their turn. Then they can go through all the way through, and these golems can't do much other than their reaction, which also is pretty deadly, until their second real turn. So she casts like a grovel on them. So when it comes to their turn, they're going to be like, "Oh, Imogen," and they won't be able to hurt anybody. So this was really, really big move. But they do get the glass open eventually, but pretty quickly. They had set it up that they figured out that it just needed frost. No, they used the chisel and the hammer, and Chetney comes in with his chisel, and they break it open, and they get the earring out, and they all pretty much get away from the golem without being hurt, all except for Laudna. Laudna, who really kind of was the linchpin here, setting up that first chisel to get Ashton's hammer to start breaking the glass. But as a reaction for when she leaves, the golems both hit her full on and lay her completely out. She is on death's door right at the beginning. Now they quickly figure out how to save her, but boy, does she go down hard. There's also a Grease reference in here, and if anybody knows me, I'm not a big musical fan, but I'm reporting what's here. Also, the Yassify, which is something I didn't know existed, and I wish I didn't know existed. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Sam, so much for telling me about Yassify. I hate the world a little bit more. But it was funny seeing all their pictures yassified, but also horrifying at the same time. And it just kind of felt like Orym just kept getting sabotaged in this, like, or at least accidentally sabotaged, I should say. Like, again, best laid plans, man. It does not matter until you roll them damn dice. Also, I got to hear Laura say, "Balls, motherfuck, bitch," which, again, I swear like a sailor, and I try not to turn all of my videos into like a profanity, spewing chaos. But these guys and gals, they swear really good. I applaud the cussing that goes on this show. So trying to leave has become a problem because they're all trying to get out, and they're all trying to avoid the tiles in the room because they know that the lion statue is designed to move, and if they hit the tile, they're all really close together. And that's what happens, is in an effort to get out the way they came, they're all in the same room. So they can't go nowhere. And they've had to even leave other people in the other room because they can't fit any more people there. And this is where the biggest problem in the whole episode comes up, which Matt says, "I saw this coming," which was the people that came down to come after them, not come after them, but to compete for the earring, found the immovable rod, took it from where it was, and put it by the door. Now they can't escape through the door that they came in from. So now they've done this. They've got the earring. They're on their way out, and they can't escape the way they came in. And the whole time prior to this, Chetney just keeps wanting to go to the other door to see what it is, because Travis just wants to see the rest of the map because it's a great looking map. All these maps that they put together are incredible. I love this. I just didn't know how cool this shit was. So they end up, Chetney gets his wish. They all have to figure out how to get back out of that room into the other room, except guess what? The golems are there. And the creative way that they use to get themselves out of this, like whether it's Chetney figuring out how to pull fresh cut grass onto his back and onto the statue, all these different ways, or I'm sliding between people's legs. It's almost like when they created an even bigger problem, they figured out a better way together to get through it together. And they manage with, surprisingly, I honestly thought that they were going to get hurt a lot more because these golems pack a wallop. And while maybe Laudna doesn't have like the highest hit point strength and she went down hard, I think a lot of these characters would go down really fast if those golems just really got them. But they're able to put them down one at a time without taking tons of damage. And you got to give it up to that strategy that they were putting up in this episode. But then when they finally get rid of the other golems and they go to the door and they realize it's the same looking room as the one that they were just trying to get out of. It has its own lion statue and its own set of tiles to get through. They haven't checked those. They start talking about this whole thing. We should fake our deaths, lay down, let them come in, let them think that we're going to put a fake earring in there. They end up putting the real earring in Fresh Cut Grass's mouth, which was brilliant. That's a really cool idea. That was a terrible plan. And I'm so glad Ashton's like, you got, he's talking a lot and he's like, your improv, like your ability to improvise is really, you're doing too much. We're overthinking this kind of in a way. So they figure if they can set off the traps like remotely, right, without having to step on them themselves, they could get themselves loose that way and take out the people that are trying to get in themselves. And this scene is hilarious because they don't just, when the other group comes in, they know where the tiles are. They investigated, they see it, and they're getting ready to come into their room. And that's when Laura, as Imogen, sets off the traps, and the doors close, and all you hear is screaming, and they see the red flames through the bottom of the door, and then they set it off again, and then you hear more screaming, and everybody likes a trilogy. Everybody like things in threes these days, or forever really. They set it off a third time. So they brutalize these people. And you know what? That's exactly what I would have done in the same situation. So now that those people are burned up, still alive somewhat, and they've decided to get out of there. And they figure out how to get through. And they get into the room, and they're all grouped up, and they see the other group hurt. And after all this, they are concerned, and they do stabilize, and they do heal the people. And even the rest of the group that was going to attack them with crossbows puts their crossbows down. It's time. They know they're over. They know that if these people don't help them, if if Hell's Bells don't save them, they're not getting out of there. Orem finds the rod, and they end up getting out of there. They also find some paperwork. They managed to take some paperwork through some skillful lockpicking. Ashton's really pissed off. He also takes a helmet off a statue. They end up getting the journal out of there without setting off the trap. So things by the end of this are looking up. They've succeeded. And honestly, I kind of didn't know how they were going to pull this off. I was expecting, like almost to be like a full-on stalemate here or an absolute failure. But no, and everybody's alive, even the people working against them. So they get out. They do make, Fresh Cut Grass is able to get the blue hue off of Imogen. They do have the obligatory meeting with the man who set this all up, the museum owner, who I'm already forgetting his name, Hytroga, who is a hilarious character. As an award, they get a painting of themselves that's like a painting selfie, except they look like hell. And with papers in his back pocket, Ashton no longer wants to destroy this guy because he was really ready to lay this guy out. So we get that. The papers are there. We find out that papers can't be ripped, which means they're enchanted. So with enchanted papers, they at least know they've got something here. Something probably better than a punch in the face for Hytroga. And with Hexam pleased, the person that Ashton's kind of owing, this is good for them too. They also find out that the journal that they recovered was fake. And while Chetney tries to chuck it into the swamp, a la the Blair Witch Project map, that's the first thing it made me think of, was chucking the map into the... Where'd you put the map? I chucked that fucker into the lake. Or the river. I think it was in Blair Witch. But they're keeping it just in case they need it down the road. Now, we also get something that I do hope is canon. They're asking it to be canon, which is a Fern pouch. Please make that canon. Please give Fern a pouch. This would have, once Ashley's back, the Fern pouch would be an unending supply of hilarity. So on our way out, because they want to book out of Dodge, because once some people find, like once that guy finds out his papers are gone, other stuff's going on, they're going to be wanted by this guy. So they're trying to get out of Dodge. But Chetney wants to make a trip to the toy store, which at first kind of seemed boring. It's like, oh, okay, we're just buying toys. We're looking at toys. Okay, a little bit of character stuff for Chetney to see somebody else who works in wood, and he'd been excited about it. And then they bring up Uthedrin. Uthedrin? Question mark? And this fiend, I mean, Ultgar, and things get awkward. And I remember it was like, and I wanted to, it was it Orem said, and I wanted to leave so bad. Well, this character named Zadro, who is the owner of the toy store, it just gets really weird. And Chetney gets out of there with Orem, who gets a whisper when asked about, what's going on here. But they do get some more info from Astani as they're leaving about the twins' death that Orem has been trying to figure out, getting answers from. So that's some more stuff. They set up a lot of stuff here. There's good Chetney stuff here that is probably going to come up later, and good Orem stuff here. They also find out that the papers that they have just need a frost spell. They are able to decode it, which Orem understands having more stuff to do with this. They get a spy report on Hexam. They keep this stuff. There's also this thing about a crate. And then we get Fresh Cut Grass talking about how horses have no souls. And yeah, Fresh Cut Grass literally gets shit on by a horse after he says they don't have souls. There's a CSI Miami reference, a blind spot. Everybody's on their way home. The journey home, they don't get attacked by a giant flower monster on their way back, but everybody does level up. And if you want the math on that, the hit points that everybody gets is FCG gets 5, Orem gets 2, Chetney splits up his 6 with 4 for the Blood Hunter and 2 for Rogue. Again, Travis is playing a hell of a game. He's really, him and Fern, man, but everybody's got something. But right now, Chetney and Fern are really killing it. Audna gets 6, Imogen gets 5, Ashton gets 4, and until Ashley comes back, we won't know what her hit points are. Matt says he's going to talk to her. So that is the end of episode 21. Again, I've made this is a really long video. I'm hoping to streamline these. I'm hoping to make them less rough. Hopefully we can, as the more of these I do, I'll get better at them. I'll probably start trying to add more things, but right now I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, even though having a green screen does make it a little more complicated. I could do it without it, but now that I have this background, it's not going away. So anyway, if you liked what I was doing here, or you see the potential, please hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, please become a subscriber. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. I'm going to be trying to get these out sooner. The reason, and for the people who got this far, you guys deserve to know why it took so long to get here. Not just anxiety. It's not just fear of talking about something that I didn't know how I was going to talk about, because that's a big thing. I'm worried that the fandom's just going to tell me to go fuck myself. I had a couple of technical issues, but mostly it's because on Thursday nights right now for the next 2 more weeks, I'm still talking about Moon Knight over on Darren Jakes' channel, D's Reviews, which you should, if you like Moon Knight and you want good discussions and you like what I have to say, you might want to hear what more people have to say about Moon Knight. You can go to D's Reviews every Thursday night where we're live talking Moon Knight. But once that's over, I'm planning on me leaving my Thursday nights open for Critical Role, so I can, and I also have to move some other stuff around so I can stay up that late. And then at least I can get some stuff at least out by Friday, Saturday instead of Sunday, Monday. So thanks a lot, everybody. Again, I hope that this is at least a step in the right direction. You can see some potential here is what we're doing. Have a great day. And is it Thursday yet? Bye.